Okay, so let's get to our Ruth and Boaz love story. We see it in this chapter unfolding as we left off in chapter 3, the end. Remember, Boaz was, he realized, he told Ruth, he said, wait a minute, there's another family redeemer that has claims. So he had to go and make sure that he didn't want the land that was Naomi's and her husband. He wanted to make sure that this man did not also want Ruth as, you know, his wife, because she was a part of his property, his land. So let's start off with chapter 4. If you have your Bibles, you can follow along with me, and I will insert a couple things here and there. So chapter 4, Boaz went to the gate of the town and sat down there. Soon the family redeemer Boaz had spoken about came by. Boaz called him by name and said, "Come over here and sit down." So he went into town, and he didn't waste no time. He went the very next day. He went into town and he looked for that other family redeemer, and he said, "Hey, we need to talk." And so he went over and sat down. Then Boaz took 10 men of the town's elders. So he's smart. He said, "Oh, I'm going to talk to you, but I'm also going to get witnesses." So he went down to the town, grabbed the elders, and he said, "Sit here." And they sat down. So here, this is Boaz now. He said to the Redeemer, "Naomi, who has returned from the land of Moab, is selling a piece of a land that belonged to our brother Elimelech. I thought I should inform you. Buy it back in the presence of those seated here and in the presence of the elders of my people. If you want to redeem it, do so. But if you do not want to redeem it, tell me so that I will know, because there isn't anyone other than you to redeem it, and I am next after you." So here he's letting this person know, okay, you're in line for this land, you're in line for this property, do you want it and everything that belongs to it? Because if you don't, I want my claim on it. And one of the things that it says here on my notes real quick before I keep going was that Boaz immediately went to the gate of the town, the place where it was important for legal and social matters were transacted in the presence of town elders. So he immediately went. Sometimes we need to immediately take care of things in our lives. Why do we procrastinate? Why do we wait to resolve some matters? You know, it was important. It was important to Boaz to get this situation. He wanted to get married. He wanted to have a wife. He wanted to have Ruth by his side, and he wasted no time. So I just want to highlight that word immediately. He immediately went. And so sometimes we need to immediately take care of situations and things in our lives. Don't let them linger, because we don't know what the next step holds. God may just be saying, I want you to immediately take action on that. I want you to immediately act on that. And when we're obedient, which is what we've followed through this whole book, the obedience of Ruth, when we're obedient, God has incredible things in store for us, for our lives. And sometimes, just a little side note, I know I'm kind of lingering on this, but sometimes our immediate obedience produces a harvest. Maybe it's not for us. Maybe it's not for our lifetime, but hello, we have children and our children's children, our generations to come. Our obedience is going to set up a harvest for our future. So just think about that. Think about that, because we'll see how Ruth's obedience to Naomi, and we'll see how it plays out in just a few chapters. So, okay, so we ended off at verse 4. I am next after you. So here comes the other person. He immediately said, I want to redeem it. He answered. Then Boaz said to him, on the day you buy the land from Naomi, you will also acquire Ruth the Moabitess, the wife of the deceased man to perpetuate the man's name on his property. So let me just insert this. Along with the financial cost of redeeming the land, there was a social cost. So the transaction also included a commitment to marry Ruth. So not only did he have to buy back this land, but he also had to make the commitment to marry Ruth and to keep the man's name on the property, which was, what was her husband's name? Mahlon? Was it Mahlon? Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. So verse 6, the Redeemer replied, I can't redeem it myself, or I will ruin my own inheritance. Take my right of redemption, because I can't redeem it. So let me read on to verse 8, and then we'll summarize that. So he said, I can't redeem it. Verse 7, at an earlier period in Israel, a man removed his sandal and gave it to the other party in order to make any matter legally binding concerning the right of redemption or exchanging of the property. This was the method of legally binding a transaction in Israel. So yes, it kind of sounds weird, but they used to take off their sandal and give it to the other person, and that was how they did the contract. So the Redeemer removed his sandal and said to Boaz, buy back the property yourself. Okay, so here we go. Let me insert in some notes. So Boaz, so here we hear from the other man, we don't really know his name, and he says, he doesn't want to get married to, sorry guys, my phone just flipped. I don't want to get married to Ruth. He didn't want to ruin his own inheritance. But what is so ironic is that his concern to protect his own name, this other person that was in line to get this land, his concern to protect his own name rather than to committing to raise up heirs in the name of Elimelech led him to being left nameless. Let's think about that for a minute. So this man said, no, I don't want it. I don't want to marry her, because then he would have to have had honor Elimelech's name. He would have to, it wouldn't be in his name. It would be in Elimelech's name. Oh, this land is Elimelech, because it was an heir to him. But you know what? He didn't do that, and it left him being nameless and not remembered. In seeking to serve himself first, he inadvertently undermined his best interest. It is instead, who do we remember now? Who do we remember as being the Redeemer? Boaz, right? Whose name would be famous, who would be talked about through Jerusalem. So his decision was confirmed by a legal gesture, which was remember the weird handling of the shoe? You would remember it by that way. So let's keep on reading. We are at verse 9 now. And also I thought that was that was funny. I mean, not funny, but he missed it. That man missed it. He didn't claim his right to redeem the land. He said, no, I don't want to do that. He was selfish. So yeah, that gives us something to think about too. Sometimes we need to think about, our decisions, and instead of thinking of ourselves. So verse 9, Boaz said to the elders and all the people, you are witnesses today, and I am buying from Naomi everything that belonged to Elimelech, Chilion, and Mahlon. I will also acquire Ruth the Moabitess, Mahlon's widow. It was Mahlon. That was her husband's name. Couldn't think of it. Mahlon's widow as my wife, to perpetuate the deceased man's name on his property, so that his name will not disappear among his relatives or from the gate of his home. You are my witnesses today. The elders and all the people who were at the gate said, we are witnesses. May the Lord make the woman who is, and here they put a blessing over him. And listen to this. May the Lord make the woman who is entering your house like Rachel and Leah. And if you've read the Old Testament, you have heard about Rachel and Leah. who together built the house of Israel. May you be powerful in, okay, I don't know how to pronounce this, Ephrath, and famous in Bethlehem. May your house become like the house of Perez, the son of Tamar, bore to Judah. And if you read, I think you read about Tamar in Genesis, who loves you and is better to you than 7 sons, has given birth to him. Naomi took the child, placed him on her lap, and took care of him. The neighbor woman said, a son has been born to Naomi, and they named him Obed. He was the father of Jesse, which then was the father of David. We are still not done with this chapter. I want to keep reading to verse 22, but I just want to pause right here for 1 second. I just want to highlight that God gave her a son, and it says she conceived, she gave birth to a son. So I'm imagining in my mind that this probably happened pretty quickly, but the fact that she did not have a son with Mahlon for 10 years while they were in Moab, that just kind of blows my mind. And I just kind of want to highlight that for a second. For, you know, she thought maybe this is something that Ruth thought that she couldn't do, that she wasn't able to have children. Maybe she thought that she was barren. And I want to read this from my Bible, an insert. It says, although for 10 years in Moab, Ruth had been unable to bear a son for Mahlon, through the Lord's direction and intervention, she immediately, so here we see the word again, immediately, she immediately conceived and bore a son for Boaz. The child would be a comfort for Naomi, which is the mother-in-law, the grandmother, in her old age. So right there when I read that, I can see Naomi's face, the joy being restored to her, her faith being restored. Remember in chapter 1 when we read that she was bitter, she was upset and mad at God? I can see her now laughing and finding joy, the true joy of the Lord all over again through this grandchild. Let's keep on going. He would be her family redeemer who would provide for her needs in her declining years. He was named Obed. So here we find out that the child's name was Obed, a short form of Obadiah, which means servant of the Lord. Though no one could bring back Naomi's husband or sons, now she had a daughter-in-law whom all recognized as they referred to her as what? Better than 7 sons. So that was an honor. That was such an honor. Can you imagine somebody saying that to you? That was an honor. And I just envision that. I just envision Naomi being so happy. So let's find out the genealogy, why this is so important. Why does it matter that Ruth and Boaz got together? Why does it matter, you know, if they had a son and he was named Obed? Okay, so, well, let me tell you why. Because this is where the genealogy of David, King David, that we read in the next couple of chapters in Samuel, 2 Samuel, and who wrote all the Psalms. And I mean, he is a huge part of the Old Testament. So this is the lineage of where David came from. So let's read on, verse 18. Now this is the genealogy of Perez. Perez fathered Hezron. Hezron fathered Ram, who fathered Aminadab. Aminadab fathered Nahshon, who fathered Salmon, who Salmon fathered Boaz. Boaz, who fathered Obed, and Obed fathered Jesse, who fathered David. So isn't that amazing? And also from the line of David is who Jesus Christ is birthed through. So I want to get into that in just a few minutes, and I want to show you why this is so important. Because sometimes we think, man, God can't use me. Who am I? I'm a nobody. You know, what do I have to offer to God? I'm lost. I'm wandering. I'm hurt. I'm in pain. And God can take that very same thing that we think that he can't use. He can take that very same thing and use it for a greater purpose. And remember a few minutes ago when I was talking about passing it down to generation to generation? Well, this is truly what we see here. We see it being passed down from generation to generation. So I am going to read Matthew. I'm going to end with this. I'm going to read from Matthew chapter 1, and I will tell you why. I'm reading from Matthew chapter 1. It says, it starts off with the genealogy of Jesus Christ. So guess what? Ruth and Boaz are in this. They had something to do with this, guys. Obed had something to do with this. Their son, the son that Ruth and Boaz produced, had to do with the genealogy of Jesus Christ as well. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing how God uses people that we think, oh my gosh, what do they have to offer? Or what do I have to offer? You know, we all have something to put forth to the kingdom of God. So I'm just going to read the insert on my Bible because it's a lot of names and I don't know how to pronounce half of them. And you guys will be thinking I'm like speaking another language, and I'm not. So let me just read the insert from chapter 1, verse 2 through 6. It says, Matthew mentioned 4 women. There's 4 women mentioned in the genealogy of Jesus Christ. So, and all of them were Gentiles, which means they were not of Jewish descent. Gentiles would be considered like you and me. I mean, we're not of Jewish background, heritage. So that's pretty important too, guys. That was a really big deal back then. So Tamar was a Canaanite. Rahab was from Jericho. Ruth was a Moabitess. And Uriah's wife, Bathsheba, was probably a Hittite. The mention of these women signals God's intention to include Gentiles and women in his redemptive plan. Guess what, guys? You and me are part of his redemptive plan. Doesn't that just make you so happy that we're part of God's redemption plan? Yes. I know that makes me extremely happy that God wants to use women, that he wants to use people of all backgrounds. He wants to use us to bring his word forth, to be kind to people, to show love, the fruits of the Spirit. He wants us to be part of his redemption plan. So I hope that you meditate on that. I want to highlight the word immediately, that making things happen immediately. And I also want to highlight on God using women, and he makes all things, like we've seen here this whole chapter in Ruth, how he has used Ruth and Naomi, and they went through so much in Moab. They went through so much in Moab. They were so sad, so upset that, hey guys, I don't know why, but I'm just getting live notifications. But hey to you guys that are on, I hope you've been listening and enjoying. But where was I at? Through the whole Ruth chapter, we've seen Ruth and Naomi, their faith has been incredible, and they've made not judgments, but they made actions and things happen in their life that probably they thought, whatever, I have no choice. This is all that I have left to do. Hey Joni, listening while grading my bathroom, laugh out loud. Okay, cool. They made choices and, things that probably they didn't know what the future was going to hold, but God had a plan. God ordered their steps. So what do you do? What do you take that into your life? How can you apply that to your life? When you're going through a hard time and you're like, God, why? And I know I'm the number one questioner. Like, I don't even know if that's a word, questioner, but I question God so much. I'm like, God, this doesn't make any sense. Why are you having me walk this walk? Why are you having me go through this? I get weary. I get upset. We're human. We have all these emotions that stir up inside of us. And in some situations, because not all, I haven't been able to see, God's not done with them yet. But in some situations, I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, I see, Lord. I see why you had me, why I went through that. I see your perfect plan coming to pass in my life. I see why I had to go through that. Let me just give you like a little, a reference of what I'm talking about. Like, okay, maybe I don't know. I'm trying to think of one. But when I was, maybe when I was a teenager. A teenager story. No, I don't want to talk about a teenager story. But, okay, let me just be real. So, like, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. Okay, so maybe when I was younger, I didn't make the best choices, you know? I didn't make the best choices when I was younger. And you know how they say when you make choices, you have there's consequences that follow. But you know what? It's all a part of God's plan, because when we make choices, and sometimes we don't make the best choices, and we do have hard times following after that, God takes those very same ugly choices that we made, and he does, I think I've talked about this before, he gives us beauty for ashes. And he redeems. He has the perfect redemption plan for our lives. And I am so thankful for that, because man, my life could have really turned out another way. I probably wouldn't be here. So I'm just very thankful for his redemptive plan. So I hope that, hey Joan, how are you? You found it. Whoop, whoop. I'm so excited. Yay. I don't know if you've listened to chapter 1, 2, or 3, but you'll have to go and catch up. But yes, so I'm so thankful for his redemptive plan. And, you know, I hope that you guys have enjoyed this and gotten something out of it that you didn't notice before about this story. Man, I know that the number one thing that stuck out to me was Ruth's obedience. And God, I feel like God is really telling me, be obedient. Be obedient to me, and I will handle the rest. I will take care of the rest. And not that I have a hard time being obedient, but you know, I mean, sometimes I just want to do things my way. Can I be real for a minute? Sometimes I just want to do things my way. I don't want to do them God's way. And God's saying, be obedient, you know, be obedient. There's